All right, so a little about me. Like I said, I'm the owner and principal designer of Verce Design. It's myself. I've got three other designers on my team. We are located here at the Michigan Design Center. We are down the hall under construction right now, but if you come check us out in a couple of weeks, we'll have our fully renovated showroom with furniture that super cool. I don't know many other showrooms that do this, but you can buy the furniture off the floor. You come in, you like it, you can, I mean, you'd have to be pretty strong to walk out with it today, but you could do that. A couple other things about me. This is my family over here. I've got three little kiddos, Eli, Selah, and Amelie. They're really my why. I mean, even down to why I have a home that, brings me peace, but it also kind of propels me into why we design spaces for, families, whether it's grandparents or, even single people. How do we create a place of peace? What is your why? And for me, this is my why. I'm also the president of the IDS Interior Design Society Detroit chapter. It's a local network of other designers and industry partners, and the co-founder of Shiloh Detroit, a youth program in Highland Park. So kind of all my free time, right? So yeah, this picture here on the left, I threw it in there because just a year ago, I was working out of my little home office. We've got Andrea here who's virtually working with me out in Oxford, and I was in Detroit. And since then, being in the design center, it's just been such a privilege. So we've done homes all the way on the Caribbean, Texas, Arizona, and Metro Detroit, from new builds to historic renovations. And I live in a historic home in Detroit. This is actually kind of a cool tangent, but back in the 60s, the mayor of Detroit lived in my home during the riots, and we've connected with the family, and they're going to come over tomorrow and tell us all the stories. So it's really special. So what is dark and moody? I was talking to my mother-in-law. She's like, dark and moody. Like, when you think of dark and moody, sometimes you might think about, like, mom with three kids, kid throws up, you've got to change a diaper, someone's sick, husband's out of town. Like, life can sometimes feel dark and moody, but the dark and moody we're going to talk about is something that brings you peace and comfort. This is my living room, and I've had one of my favorite comments coming into our living room. Friend walked in, she's like, I just feel like it's giving me a hug. The room just feels so beautifully balanced. And you just walk in and you feel like you're receiving a hug from your space. And what better comfort than to have that in your own home? So the way I would describe a dark and moody interior is bringing in dark elements. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're painting a whole room dark. Although if you work with me as your designer, I might recommend that. But not every home, not every space needs to be a painted black room. Bringing in dark elements, bringing in bold accents. What's really fun about dark spaces is you can bring in a velvet gold chair and it just works. It becomes a feature because we've got that bold accents with heightened contrast. So I'm going to teach you how to do that, but let's just look at some inspiration images first. Here we've got a storm, and one of the things I love, grew up boating, love the water, sitting on the, whether it's a boat or inside a home, watching the storm roll in. It just kind of takes your life and like puts it on hold, and you just breathe in the stillness. Love that. We've got another dark and moody. One of my favorite inspirations that I pull from is old European architecture. I've actually got a very similar leaded glass pane window in my home. It's just the craftsmanship is so beautiful. And so bringing in those, contrasting tones, the natural elements, the natural light, and you just feel like you want to cozy up next to that fireplace. That brings in the mood, And then over here, just the really rich tones and the various textures of the glass. Just really great inspiration image on bringing in the mood. So we'll briefly just give you some inspiration images from some of my favorite designers. This one is Morehouse Design out of the East Coast. Bringing in those vintage elements, the natural textures of the leather, the dark tones with the contrast of the light. It feels so balanced, doesn't it? It's just beautiful. Here we've got another one. This is from Sean Anderson. He's out of Tennessee. And we've got both of them. They're very, very dark, saturated spaces. But look at how the light floods in. And it feels so bright, doesn't it? It would look completely different if the ceiling in that room on the right was white, wouldn't it? The natural light in both the spaces just feel so bright while using dark colors. I find it so interesting. Here's another one. This is Heidi Callier. She's out in Washington. Don't you love her? She's fabulous. So the one on the left, we're working with a lot of dark colors. We've got the contrast in the island, contrasting wood tones, different stones. It just feels really balanced with the dark colors. But then the one on the right, I pulled because to me, this also feels quite moody, doesn't it? We've got just the rich tones. It's not stark white, but we've got the mood and the linens and the height of the natural tree with the wood tones and the texture. Just really beautiful. And notice even in the design world, we call a ceiling the fifth wall. Oftentimes we forget about the fifth wall. Even here, we've got the ceiling in a wood tone. Over here, a lot of people, especially in older homes, are trending more towards using really small profile flush mount light fixtures as opposed to can lights, just to kind of cherish the historic elements of the home. Can lights are a little more modern, so you'll see that in this one on the left. One more, I love the dark colors in these. Again, we've got the bright light from the windows. Over here, you can't see it very well, but this is a grass cloth. So we've got the grass cloth texture next to the high lacquered black paint to reflect all that natural light. So, you know, the trend here is we're working with contrast, natural light. Kind of a bummer in design photos, you don't technically put on the light fixtures. So we're going to talk a lot about light fixtures, but all the photos have the light fixtures off because that's just how we do it in our world. So, but we'll point out the light fixtures. So even just see this floor lamp over here in this picture. But what you'll really see is the natural light, the layered lighting, the various textures, and even down to the sheen of the paint color. It all plays a role in how to master that dark and moody space. Okay, are you guys ready for Design 101? We're gonna get into college class for a hot second. So balance. Balance is, it's an art word that you'll hear whether you're painting, doing design, architecture, sculpture. Balance is crucial when designing a space. What is balance? It's the distribution of weight of objects, color, texture, and space. So the way I like to see a room is based on 3 different layers, kind of like a cake. They all play a role in bringing that weight to the space. Oh, we're getting moody in here. I feel like we need some music behind it. All right, so oftentimes when we are thinking about a space, we tend to put most of our focus here on the floor. The functional elements. We've got our sofa, our coffee table, our rug, our accent table. That, in order to have a room and a functional room, there's no way you could forget about the floor, right? Then we've got the ceiling in the middle. So I'm going to talk about what we tend to gravitate towards as we're just kind of thinking about the functional elements of a room. So we'll start from the ceiling. We'll put a ceiling light in. If you've got a builder grade home, oftentimes it's just that round, what we call it as designers, just a little boob light on the ceiling, and that's it. Maybe you'll have some can lights, but you know, that's typically about it. In the middle, what we tend to do is put some art on the walls and call it a day. We're good, the middle is done. And then we put everything that has weight on the floor. So what you'll find is the middle almost feels forgotten about. Like you could, you know, like in Mission Impossible and they put the lasers through a room, you could run all the lasers through the middle of the room and it wouldn't touch a thing. That's not what we want because it will feel really, really bottom heavy. So making sure that we don't forget about the middle of the room is crucial. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that because there is gravity in this world and you have to figure out how to fill the middle without defying gravity, right? So what a well-balanced room looks like is something like this. And I'll show you some images to follow. But on the ceiling, like I said, that's the fifth wall. So don't forget about the ceiling. It's very important. So we've got our ceiling light. Sometimes the ceiling light, it can go into the middle layer. If we've got a nice, you know, pendant or chandelier, but even like I mentioned earlier, maybe we have instead of can lights, maybe we've got some really unique flush mounts that just draw your eye up a little bit more. Maybe we add some crown molding or some wood beams, depending on the architectural style of your home. You've got your curtain rods, and then the curtains will go a little bit into that middle layer to bring in the texture, but the curtain rod is still playing a role. May not be the star of the show, but it certainly is a support role to the room. We've got ceiling beams, maybe it's a coffered ceiling, but that is what draws our eye up. Show of hands, how many have heard, if you paint the ceiling dark, it's gonna feel really heavy? We've all heard that, right? It's not true. I'm gonna show you how you can do it, but the whole way that you can master that is making sure that middle layer is not forgotten about. So the middle, this one I got the most excited about, as you can probably tell, because you know it's so important. So bringing in floor lamps, table lamps, wall sconces, picture sconce. So if you've got a picture on the wall, put a sconce on it. They've got a lot of great plug-in ones. You can do some that are hardwired, and they have Bluetooth. Oh my gosh, light bulbs out now that like you could just turn it on from your phone and have no cord, which is really nice. Window treatments, whether it's monochromatic or you bring in a color or texture or pattern, bringing in real or faux trees. If you're like me, mom of 3 kids, bring in the faux trees. No one's judging you, I promise. Bookcases, bonus if there's lighting in it, something that's going to draw your eye upwards. Floor mirror, my living room that you guys saw that's all dark, we've got a 6-foot by 8-foot floor mirror in there, and it just feels so beautiful. It's another source of light in the room. We've got oversized artwork. Don't be afraid to go big. If you've got a black wall, throw in a nice, you know, 4-foot by 5-foot piece of artwork, or even bigger, depending on the size of the room. And that black wall is going to become almost like a museum, like a gallery wall that's going to just let the art speak for itself. Bringing an upright piano, something, again, that's stepping into the room, bringing texture. We've got wainscoting, chandelier, I guess another art on the walls if you want to add more art, and blinds. So this middle layer cannot be forgotten about. It's so important. Maybe you've been a middle child and hopefully it's not, you know, triggering any trauma of feeling like the forgotten middle child, but here we are not forgetting about the middle of the room. So then on the floor, this is where we're grounding it. In a large room, one of my best recommendations is, you know, get an area rug that's the scale of the room, whether it's an 8 by 10 or a 9 by 12, and put all of your furniture on it. I'm kind of going off my notes here for a second, but if you have an area rug, make sure all of your furniture is sitting on it. We don't need an area rug just the size of your coffee table. You want to make sure it's grounding all of your furniture. So, you know, with a larger room, typically we'll go 9 by 12. But, you know, we tend to feel this need to, if we've got a large rectangular space, push all the furniture out to the sides. put all the artwork on the walls and one light in the middle. My recommendation, bring it together, create intimate areas. If it's a long rectangular room, maybe there's multiple areas throughout the room for conversation and community, but it feels intimate because it's all grounded. So let's look at some samples. You guys may, I'm gonna give you some tips first, more tips. So if you guys are taking notes, these are really good. Take a picture of it. Have 3 layers of lighting in your rooms. So what that includes, you might have task lighting. That counts as like a half of a light. What we really want to focus on is the ambient lighting. So bring in a chandelier, maybe a floor lamp, picture sconce, table lamp. You know, get creative with how you're going to bring in the lighting. In this room here, I was actually in there last night, and I was like, how many lights do I really have in this room? I have 7 lights in one room, but it feels so balanced because we have a task lamp on our piano. We've got 2 table lamps in our seating area. We've got one in the corner that always stays on just for a nice glow. We've got one in the corner. We have a little reading chair, and we have a picture sconce. So it's a lot of light fixtures, but that's how you're really going to get that glow, that warmth, that, you know, when you want a dark and moody space, that's really what you're looking for. Light up all 4 corners of the room. So oftentimes the natural light is really going to be your best source of light. So your windows, if there's a window in the room, you can check that box. You've got that corner lit up. If you don't, bring in a lamp, a floor lamp, a table lamp. Like I said, floor mirrors count. So in this room, our big floor mirror is on the back end of the room. It's a long rectangle. So that mirror reflects everything outside and brings the room to be a lot brighter. So get creative with that. Doesn't necessarily have to be just a ceiling fixture. Bring in the layers of lighting. When you guys go home, look in your rooms, see if you have all 4 corners lit up. And if you don't, grab a lamp from another room and just see how you like it. It's okay to play a little bit when it comes to designing your spaces. Bringing in natural materials. So again, the warmth of a natural material, we're bringing the outsides in. So in my home, we've got a historic Tudor. So I came from an old farmhouse in Royal Oak. It was the first home built on our block. So it truly was a farmhouse. Sorry, Joanna Gaines, but it was a farmhouse. So we had this super cool rustic dining table, and it just didn't fit in our historic Tudor. So how you bring in the wood elements, make sure you're staying true to the character of your home. But some ways you can bring the natural elements in would be wood, leather, brick, stone, even plaster. Venetian plaster is making a really beautiful comeback right now. So consider that. The vintage details just kind of brings in another texture too. So a couple of things to think about. And then again, bring in the outside in with the plants. I was looking at this last night, and the greenery on there, I don't know how long it stayed alive after the photo shoot there, but it's okay to do faux plants. Just make sure they're beautiful faux plants. You know, various levels of quality out there. It tends to be a bigger investment, but also you don't have to water it and it's not going to die in a month or 2. And then lastly, consider the weight of your furniture. We'll look at some photos to kind of go through that a little bit more, but if you have sofas that sit low to the ground, your accent chairs, maybe you want to bring them up, like our accent chair, you can kind of see it in the corner in the wing back, it's on taller feet. So making sure all your furniture isn't just heavy on the ground, maybe bringing in a glass coffee table or a taller metal coffee table that's not a heavy wood unit in the middle of the room if all your other accent furniture is heavy on the ground. So let's look at some samples and we'll kind of take what we've learned and put it into action. So this is a photo by Studio McGee. Any Shay McGee fans out here? She does beautiful work, and we've seen this photo kind of surfacing a lot lately. It's a wine room. I would love to have this in my house. But as we go from the ceiling to the floor, that fifth wall, the ceiling, it's not forgotten about. We've got a wood coffered ceiling on there. But the contrast between the walnut on the ceiling and the white oak, the light white oak on the ground, just brings that balance and the warmth. We've got a lot of natural light with that middle layer. We've got window treatments, they're monochromatic, but it's adding texture with the wainscoting and the natural elements with the marble fireplace and the leather chairs. We've got 1, 2, 3 lights over here and a picture light and the one on the right. So we've got lots of ambient lighting, but then we have so much natural light as well. And we can't forget about the frame TV. If you guys don't know what a frame TV is, go on Google. You can find them anywhere. If you ever have to buy a TV, just buy a frame TV. It's a little bit more, but oh my gosh, it makes all the difference in the world. That is a TV, and you can make it look like a piece of artwork. Game changer. As far as balance, as we're looking in here, the furniture, so the sofa, it's sitting heavier on the ground, but we've got a little bit of height in those accent chairs, and then this really beautiful, delicate coffee table that's just, you know, creating that nice balance with all the furniture. We've got some darker, rich tones, but the glass and brass, it's reflecting light and creating this, you know, airiness in the room. Just really lovely. Here's another one. Again, one of my favorite designers, Whitney Parkinson. Just a nice little butler pantry. We've got natural wood tones. We've got deep, rich contrast in the dark cabinets. The layers of lighting include the ceiling lights. We've got the 2 sconces on the side and the mirror to reflect more natural light. Textures, we've got grass cloth. She even has textile fabric in the cabinets, which is very unique to her style, but also very beautiful, bringing in that texture. And around the mirrors there is a natural marble surround, bringing in more natural elements. And even the flooring, she's got this alternating flooring going from kind of a distressed brick to the wood. So lots of texture in here, but the colors is really speaking for itself as it's reflecting the light and bringing in those richer tones. And what I really like is if you go through this, you're in a bright space, you know? So it's okay. I think one of the questions we get a lot is like, oh, if I do a dark room, is it gonna feel totally separate from the rest of the house? That's okay. It's okay to have a room that just kind of speaks for itself. And then you can step into this bright and airy space and it just feels right. So, okay, let's talk about contrast. So contrast, kind of cheesy, but it's not all black and white, you know? This photo here is stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. Whoever did it did a phenomenal job, but we're going to talk about a different kind of contrast. Obviously here we've got bright white mixed with dark black and gray. And there's no doubt that there's a lot of contrast here. But the contrast we're going to be looking at is visual elements placed together that's noticeably different. And as I was kind of thinking about, you know, what's something that we've experienced that's got a lot of contrast, and I went back to my college years. One of the artists back in the 1600s is known for high contrast as it relates to very, very dark, rich tones, but feeling this brightness without using like white and black. So his artist named Rembrandt. And like I said, he was from the 1600s. And was kind of revolutionary at this time because when artists were, you know, gaining popularity, it was very much, you know, portraits or true real life what the eye sees. And what he came in to do is bringing in these dark, dark tones. And I feel like I could just like, I can feel the warmth of the fire here. And it's just a phenomenal art piece. We've got the lady down here, and then we've got this gentleman, but playing in with that natural light. This contrast, it's nothing new to 2023. This has been around for centuries, and it's been appreciated for centuries. So I think that's another thing we hear a lot of is this just a trend, you know? But if you look back to old European architecture, artwork from the 1600s, you know, this idea of contrast and rich tones has been embraced for centuries. So a couple of tips for you guys as it relates to contrast. This is actually my bedroom. Really unique way we brought in this contrast is everything in this room. It's a 100-year-old house, guys, so the walls aren't perfect. You got to embrace it. Adds texture, right? But we have the whole room, ceiling, walls, trim, and doors. It's all the same color. The way we added contrast was bringing in a higher sheen on the doors and trim. So if you see here, I think one of the best spots to notice that is in this area here, the walls are reflecting less light than the trim. And it's just creating definition with subtle contrast, but enough to make the room really come alive. Another thing to note as you guys consider painting your homes darker colors is, and I'll talk about this more on the next slide, but be nice to your eyes. I think sometimes, and I've learned this from experience, is when you go from the outdoor in, or, you know, if you're sleeping and someone comes in and turns the light on, you're kind of blinded for a second. So that relates obviously to how we consider bringing in darker colors and how we bring in the light colors too, is kind of giving your eyes time to rest. So if we're looking outside, our bay window here, which I took a picture of this morning, it was so beautiful. We've got the sun rising through that window, and it's handmade leaded glass, and it reflects this beautiful pattern throughout our whole room. But it's all like dark burgundy. I think some of it's wood. I think some of it's been painted over the years. But we left that because that richness of the wood is enough to give your eye a break from the dark paint to the wood and then embrace the outdoors instead of painting it all the same colors. So think about that. Tip number 2. So this one blows people's minds when I tell them this, but in this room, there's no white paint. So the ceiling here is actually a medium tone of gray. Again, I've learned this from experience. My painters probably wanted to kill me when they did this room. They painted the ceiling white, bright white. And I walked in and I was blinded by it. I had to have them painted again for the 3rd time. But what we see here is we've got this gray, it's requisite gray on the ceiling, which we also have on our trim throughout the house. Our walls are pure white, but our trim is a gray tone. So again, going on a tangent, but I think our American architecture has taught us at some point in time that all of our trim needs to be white throughout the entire house, and that's the only way you need to do it. We don't have any white trim in my house, and I love it. Our trim is this requisite gray. Our walls are white in our main hallways and stuff, but it's okay to kind of color outside the lines a little bit and change up what we've been told is kind of the norm in interior design. Our walls in this space is green-black, and then the crown molding, that beautiful plaster molding, and our base molding, we added a little gloss to it just to reflect the beauty of the artwork and the crown. And then our fireplace is tricorn black and a high gloss. So you'll see the before, we'll get to that. But I think sometimes people think the idea of black is just going to create this like black hole. It's going to feel really heavy. What I love about this, especially in the sheen, is see how it's got white on it and it's not even white. Isn't that amazing? Like we've got here on this side, the way the light's hitting it, you're seeing more of these beautiful details and embracing the artwork of the actual unit through the texture. And when the fireplace is burning, it turns like this, amber color. It's just beautiful. So just so you guys can see, like I put it on my computer and I was squinting when I put the white on there. So imagine if my ceiling was truly white. I have in there like grab your sunglasses. Like it doesn't feel balanced. There's too much of a contrast. It's a lot softer on the eyes. So we were just at a consultation earlier this week and they wanted to go dark, and she held up the paint strip and she picked the top one and the bottom one on the, Sherwin-Williams fan deck. And I was like, no, that's going to be too painful on your eyes. We've got to, let's go one down and one up. And that contrast is going to feel it will feel right, So, all right. Jean Stouffer, another fabulous designer. She mastered the contrast in this space. She's out of Grand Rapids. She was here back in the fall. She's lovely. The contrast here is perfect. We've got, starting on the ceiling, it's dark, but she's got it in the highest gloss. It's almost a lacquer. So it's reflecting so much light. And I don't think anyone would stand in there and think the ceiling's going to fall on me, like what we've been told, dark ceilings, it's going to feel so heavy. This one just draws your eye up, and I think it's so beautiful. We've got a ton of natural light. The pops of, I hate the word pops of color, but we've got the orange, we've got a statement piece. When you have dark colors, you can bring in those statement pieces and they just really speak for themselves. A little bit of contemporary elements with the bright white sofa against the nice contrasting diamond marble flooring. As you look at the balance here too, again, we've got the sofa that's a little bit more grounded on the ground. We've got a nice tall coffee table on tall legs, and then we've got our accent chairs. Just feels really airy without going the whole bright and airy route where everything is white. No hard feelings. It's just a different style. Here's another really beautiful one. This is Park and Oak. They're out of Illinois. The contrast in here is so rich. We've got black on the ceiling, the natural elements in the wood beams, green on the walls. We've got vintage pieces. Just such beautiful contrast. Who wouldn't love to have a coffee or a glass of wine in here? It's so pretty. So I hope you guys have some really good tips. My goal is to truly empower you. Start small. I think a lot of people, it's like, what if I don't like it? Well, that's okay. Like everything is fixable, right? But with these tips and tricks, you really can try and, create these nooks. Maybe you start with just a nook in your house or a powder room. I think sometimes we think like, oh my gosh, is this going to be like brown pants with black shoes? Like the fashion police are going to show up at my house and tell me I did something wrong. Like, this is your home. You're paying the mortgage. Like, do what you want in it, This is a home in Grosse Pointe that we did back there. Dark, rich tones in the cabinets, but it just feels bright because all the light is reflecting. So don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone, and don't be afraid to think of what other people think of you, because you're the one spending your time in your home, So yeah, what's holding you back? Sometimes it's just that fear of like, going bold, but taking those risks. I mean, I think deep down there's all like a little bit of an artist inside of us, and we want to create our home that is a reflection of us. And so don't be afraid to take those risks and step outside of your comfort zone, and you might really love it. So at Verce Design, one of our core values, this is what leads all of our designs that we do for our clients, is we believe your home is a place of peace and a thoughtful reflection of you. So taking that time to really know what your aesthetic is, know why, what is your why, and what you want the home to feel like, how you want to wake up in your space and go to bed and celebrate life's highest and lowest moments. What is that feeling you want to create in the space? And then we'll bring it to life through furniture and fixtures. So this is my living room, you guys. Isn't that crazy? So I've had a few people ask, like, why didn't you keep these built-ins? These were just pieces of furniture. One of my favorite things about this room is that medallion in the middle never had lighting in it, and we added a beautiful chandelier. It took a 6-foot drill bit to go through all the floor joists, but we made it happen. The oak on the trim, it was too orange once we painted it, so we stained it darker. It's okay to just kind of be in process with that. You can deepen the tones of your wood. We stained the wood floor, we painted the ceiling, the fireplace, and just gave it a new, fresh look and feel. This is the after. I was trying to find a good angle before and after. It just didn't happen. But you guys get the feeling, right? It's totally different space, but this reflects me and my style. While at the same time, this was very much so the style of the people we bought the home from. So, you know, again, I've got 3 kids. It doesn't always look like this. There's usually like a neon colored toy in there. It totally throws off the vibe, but that's okay. Then the bedroom that we talked about. So this was before. I'm sure someone loved this. I mean, that floral carpet is kind of a cool vibe. Not my vibe. I was actually in labor. I moved when my daughter was 4 days old, my third. She was 4 days old. And I was in labor texting my painter the paint color so they could paint the walls before the carpet went down so we could move the next day. And so this is the after. Just totally changes the look and feel of the home. So hopefully we have time for questions. Hopefully I didn't tuck your ear off. But first off, thank you guys. You guys are wonderful. I appreciate you all taking the time. Thank you. If you want to stay in touch, follow us on Instagram, Verce Design Studio. You can go on our website. If this was totally overwhelming to you, you can send us an email and we can make that happen for you. So yeah, does anybody have